2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Don't Do That, the podcast where we talk about what not to do at work and beyond.
As equity practitioners, we found ourselves often thinking that folks should stop doing things before they start doing things. Hence the title of our podcast, Don't Do That. I'm Anee. I'm an equity coach, organizational equity strategist, and educator with a deep curiosity for how to improve systems and a commitment to lift others as I continue to learn and grow.
I'm Karen, and I've worked in social justice for over a decade. I'm a consultant, coach, and thought partner. My purpose is to make community matter. I do that by helping leaders create better work environments. Anee and I met as consultants and quickly became friends. Collectively, we have over 25 years of experience navigating equity, inclusion, and justice in the workplace. Don't Do That is a platform to tell stories about making mistakes at work and how to fix them. The views on this podcast are our own. We do not speak on behalf of our organizations or the communities we mention. Today, we are introducing ourselves and sharing what you can expect from the show. So we met at a consulting firm in DC. And for me, I think I had been at the firm for a couple years before Anee started. And I came to the firm from previously working in philanthropy, where I was managing a program that was around the school to prison pipeline and dismantling that and focusing on school climate issues. And I was ready for a change in my career, found this consulting group, and it was a great fit. So I moved from LA to DC and started at the firm and really started to work exclusively around equity and justice issues.
Yeah. And you had been at the firm for how long before we met?
I want to say I was probably about 2 to 2.5 years, at
Okay.
least. Yeah. But what brought you to the firm where we met?
Yeah, so I also was at a place in my career where I was looking for something different. So I spent, prior to coming to the firm, about 13 years or so in higher ed and doing justice and equity work in higher ed, mostly with historically underrepresented students. And I was burned out. I truly was burned out. I was super passionate about higher ed and working in education for years. It was like the only thing I focused on. And then I had gotten to a point where I just didn't know what to do next. So consulting seemed like a great next step for me. It was an opportunity to figure out what types of companies I wanted to work for and do different types of work. So, I saw an ad on, I think, Indeed, and I just applied, and that's how I ended up at that firm. I distinctly remember meeting you, Karen.
I do too. Let me hear
I
your story.
remember that first day. It was a summer day, and I was dressed in a business suit. I had on a blazer and a button-up, probably a skirt and kitten heels. And I'm like, I'm so excited to meet my new team. Karen, you actually interviewed me, so I was familiar with you. And Karen had on a crop top. And I was like, what in the Beyonce concert is happening?
Office chic.
It's like, oh, this isn't the space that I thought it was. Like, they're so serious. They're doing all this like serious policy work in DC. I was like, oh, sis is relaxed and living. Yes. So, I mean, I loved it because I was like, oh, this also gives me permission to show up in a different way that feels more like reflective of me. But I had never seen that, a crop top.
Now, listen, we had some fashions at the office.
You did, for sure. I will say there were other people with suits on. It just was not you. So
not that day. I didn't have to be on the Hill or anything, so I took a little bit more leeway in my office attire.
Yes.
But I definitely remember also interviewing you. I think that day, like, my schedule was full, and I think your interview was like right in the afternoon or late morning.
Mm-hmm.
And we get into like this small conference room. It's just you and me. And we start interviewing, and like, I remember you were giving it to me, girl. Every question that I asked, I was like, oh, this woman is smart. I'm like, oh yes. It was an immediate yes for me. after that interview. I was like, oh, she absolutely has to join this team. And ever since we started working together, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I have always just loved how your brain works, and I'm like, I loved working with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
So,
hearts. I've never heard that. And when you're interviewing, you have no idea how it's landing. And, when I interviewed with you and our supervisor at that time, y'all were, pretty stoic. So I was like, I don't know, honestly, it could go either way. Y'all had like a very like neutral affect. It was like, oh, okay, thanks. And then next question. So I was like, I
well,
hope they like me. I really want to be here. So
well, you knocked it out of the park, girl. You
yeah.
did a great job.
And it worked out. Here we are.
I know. And here we are today,
Yeah.
still going strong. But I think that's a great segue into talking a little bit about why we're starting this podcast, why now, and what we're hoping to share with folks from the show. So I'll start and share a little bit about how this idea came to be. Adi and I both have experience of leading equity work within organizations. And it was a couple years ago that I was leading racial equity at a company, and I was having a wild day at work. And I remember calling my brother to vent, and he said, sometimes your job is just to say, don't do that. And I was like, you are right. That is my job some days. And I always held on to that like idea, and I'm like, this will be a great conversation starter of those moments at work where you
Yeah.
just want to say, don't do that. And at this point, I think it's a perfect time for us to put this out in the world, because at this point we have done things in our career, and I know for me it's like I have stuff to say now. I have a point of view. I want to share. I want to add value to the way that people show up at work and show up as leaders.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to join?
Yeah. So I will say, when you shared that idea with me of like the simple phrase of like just don't do that, um it was also just like fun and catchy. I started collecting these moments of like don't do that at work or in life, in conversations with folks, and I felt like it was such an easy way of talking about equity change, because our work can be so complicated sometimes, or folks feel like it's maybe out of reach. It can be too academic, it can be too political, or whatever it is. But like, don't do that is so simple. It sort of breaks down complicated things into bite-sized moments of like, yeah, just don't do that thing.
Yeah.
So it was like really exciting. It was a new way to talk about or think about our work.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it makes this work touchable for people, and hopefully people will be able to resonate with the kinds of conversations and stories that we share.
Yep.
I think it's a great opportunity to actually do have a little bit of fun, play
Yes.
a quick game that we came up with called Do That or Don't Do That. So the way that this will work is I will name some things, and then Ani, you will respond if that's a do that or don't do that from your point of view, and then we'll reverse. You'll give me some things and I
Yep.
will name the same. So,
Ready.
are you ready to jump into it?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the first do that or don't do that, because I know you're a coffee lover, is espresso martinis.
Ooh.
Mhm.
I'm going to say, don't do that. I'm going to say
Okay.
don't do that. I'm going to say don't do that for a couple of reasons. I will say 9 out of 10 times, you're not really getting quality espresso.
Okay.
You're getting something bottled up. You're getting Kahlua. It's not espresso.
Okay.
The second part of that is there is something about high caffeine and alcohol that is just not right. I mean, we
Okay.
tried this, 20 years ago with the like Red
Red
Bull and
Bull.
vodka, and
Yes,
it
I remember
crashed out
that.
for a reason. Like, it is
Yes.
not good for your body at all. It's just
That
not. And I've seen adults, the 40-year-old pluses think like, oh, this is so chic. They're crashing out too. It's just not a good combo. Plus the like extra sugar and all that stuff. It's
it's
a
a
don't
no.
do that for me.
Okay. No espresso martinis for you.
No.
keep a mental note of that.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is work related. So, acknowledging current events at work that impact people's well being. Do that or don't do that.
I think it depends. I think for me, generally, I'm going to err on the do that side. Um, I'm always erring on the say the quiet thing out loud because it's not like people don't know about it or people aren't talking about it. So just acknowledging that something happened is where I'm going to lean towards. But I think it's context specific in that if whatever you're saying is not aligned with organizational values and not the values that you are saying, but like the values that you show up with, then it doesn't make sense. So, as an
Okay.
example, if the organization is nonpartisan, then I don't know that making an acknowledgement of an election feels appropriate because it's not aligned with the organization's values. If people are not allowed to talk about political affiliation, we shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
doing it in this context. I
Mm-hmm.
think there are other times if there's something happening in our larger culture. I've seen organizations when someone famous or someone who's really important to culture passes, like Nikki Giovanni. It could be relevant for like a publishing company to make acknowledgement of that. That's something, someone who is a writer, a poet, a contributor to our larger culture. And it makes sense to acknowledge that with staff. So
Okay. Perfect. So it's a depend, but you're erring on do that,
do that.
but context dependent.
Yes.
Okay. The last one I have for you is also work related. So do that or don't do that. Dress codes for the office.
I'm going to say do that. I think they should be flexible, but I'm going to say do that mostly because, not to show my millennial, but Gen Z is out of control.
Uh,
I think they need a couple of boundaries. Millennials too, because you wore a crop top to the office.
I was
I'm
about to
not.
say now.
It's no shade.
I was
It's no
wearing a
shade.
I
But
was wearing a
I
crop
feel like
top.
Gen Z
So
is like taking it to the next level, which I love. Expressing yourself with clothing, I think that's appropriate. But I think it has to be an amalgamation of everyone's sort of culture across generations. Like you can't be wearing things that make a significant portion of the people in the workplace uncomfortable. So I'm like, you should wear things that you love and you feel comfortable with, but there are boundaries because you're at work. So
okay, okay,
no one is just free out here. So I mean, it's been situations professionally where people are not wearing undergarments and people
okay.
know. So
It's
for sure,
obvious.
we definitely need we need a dress code.
We'll do that. Okay, dress
Have
codes
to
at
do
the
that.
office. Or do
Yes.
that. Okay. All right,
Okay.
your turn.
Yes. I'll start with the personal because I think you do such a great job at taking care of yourself.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that's like really important in doing equity work. So do that or don't do that. Uh, Self care midweek.
Ooh, I'm gonna say do that
Okay.
because I think it's a great way to get over the hump. And I think self care, I have learned that there are a lot of tools that you should have in your toolbox for self care. And so a midweek self care moment for me can look like, having a cup of tea and a quiet moment after my workday is done. So it doesn't always have to include, going to the spa or doing something like that. But there should always be some way that you're pouring into yourself every day. So absolutely, self care midweek, do that.
Okay, Karen. Next question is a professional
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Um, do that or don't do that. Take a job that you don't love because it is a great salary.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with don't do that because we spend a ton of time at work. Most of
Mm,
our day is consumed with work, just in terms of pure hours. And to be spending that much time for something that you don't enjoy for money solely, if that's the only motivator, I think that is not a great idea for your overall well-being. And so if you have a choice, and if I had a choice, I would want the best of both worlds. Honestly, I would want something where I'm able to pay my bills on time
Mhm.
every month and I'm able to exist and be okay at work.
Yeah. I love that you said that because I feel like a lot of the media messaging is like go straight to the cash. And like you said, you spend so much time at work, like there's a cost to that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, the money solely is not enough. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that girly either. Okay, last question,
Yes.
work related. Do that or don't do that, especially as a Black woman who is a senior leader, mentor young Black women or nah? Are we mentoring all the young Black women who are coming in or protecting our peace?
We are mentoring. We are absolutely offering all that we know to the younger or yeah, the younger generation. For me personally, that is a commitment that's really important to me because when I think about my overall career journey, there have been tons of Black women that have poured into me. And I know that
Hmm.
I would not be where I am without amazing Black women in my circle, in my village, and just people in general, mentors in general, I think play a really important role because when you're going through your career, there are things you don't know what you don't know. And so
Yeah,
being able to talk to people that have been in that situation, that have experience, I think it also gives you an opportunity to dream about what's possible. So I would definitely say do that for mentoring.
yeah, I agree. I definitely say do that. I will say sometimes I get envious of folks who just do their job at their job and are not doing like any service at all.
Mhm.
And I know that can be like controversial, especially for like Black women. If there's like a senior Black woman who comes into an organization, I think implicit in that is like, oh, for sure, she's going to have some sort of like service to the org.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And I think it's all dependent on capacity. Like, do what you can, right?
yeah,
Like within what you, as Mariah says, do the best you can with what you got. Okay.
yes, yes,
All right. That was a fun game to get to know each other or have people get to know us. I think it's a great way to end to share with folks what they can expect from the show. And so, a few things that we wanted to kind of highlight. One, in this podcast, we will be spotlighting moments in our experience and things that we have shared with other colleagues and peers, those moments that challenge us, that grow us, that frustrate us, those times where we really wanted to say, don't do that. And talking about why that was a don't do that moment and how we would address that moment from our perspective as practitioners of equity, inclusion, and justice. What else do you think folks can expect from the show?
really, it's an after action. We're thinking about what went well, what didn't go well, and ultimately how folks can continue to grow and learn from the mistakes of others. Hopefully, what we're creating is this new pathway where folks don't have to continue to make the same mistakes, that we can sort of fail forward and make new mistakes and continue to grow our field. So that's exciting to me.
Me too. And I think ultimately we want to add value to people. We want to help folks show up the best they can at work because, like we said, we spend a lot of time at work. And
Yeah.
so if we are all showing up doing the best we can, then I think everyone will have an overall better experience
Yeah.
in their workplace.
For sure. And normalize making mistakes. I mean, I
Exactly.
think it can feel like a lot of shame when someone says, like, don't do that. But I think hopefully folks will get from the two of us and our dynamic, like we tell each other, don't do that as well. So, yeah, hopefully folks will start to be okay with hearing, like, yeah, a mistake was made and like, that's okay. We'll continue to learn and grow.
Exactly. Well, I am so excited to go on this podcast journey with you, friend.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We invite folks to keep on listening and to definitely share this with other peers or colleagues that you think would be interested. And until we meet again, remember,
Don't
don't
do
do
that.
that.